Welcome to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something pretty intense. It's a first-person account of a medical experience that, honestly, sounds way more like some kind of wild psychological experiment. We're going to break down exactly what this person says happened to them, step by step.
All right, so let's just jump right in. This story, it doesn't ease you into it. Nope, it just drops you, bam, right in the middle of a crisis. Our narrator finds themselves in an ambulance, but here's the twist. Instead of getting medical help, they feel like they're being interrogated.
So you're probably wondering, what kind of interrogation happens in an ambulance? Well, according to our narrator, it was weird. The officer and the paramedic were using this strange method, and get this, there were no machines involved. It was all about just watching.
And the technique itself is pretty wild. The narrator was convinced that these people were acting like human lie detectors. Looking for those tiny, involuntary physical tells to figure out if what they were saying was the truth.
Okay, so here's how they thought it worked. Step 1, they'd ask a question. Simple enough, right? But then came step 2. They would just stare, looking for the teeniest little twitch in an eye or a toe. If they spotted something, they'd connect that reaction to whatever the person was thinking, and then just make a check mark on a piece of paper. That's it. A silent judgment, no explanation at all.
You can imagine how that would feel, right? It was profound. The narrator felt totally exposed, like their mind was an open book and their own body was a traitor, giving away all their secrets. And this feeling, this sense of being under a microscope, it's a theme that's going to stick with us through this whole story.
So, that feeling of being watched? Yeah, it's about to get a whole lot more intense. They get to the hospital, but right away the narrator says something's not right. This wasn't a normal ER. In fact, they were convinced the whole thing was a setup, completely staged.
And here's why they thought that. I mean, look at this. The ER itself looked fake, almost like a movie set. It apparently had some kind of high-tech command center with cameras monitoring the entire city. And then there's this little detail, which is just bizarre. An EKG machine was already beeping in the room before they were even connected to it. How does that happen?
It wasn't just the room either. Even the medical stuff felt fake. The narrator says the staff would act like they were drawing blood, go through all the motions, but they never actually took any. It was all just a show, a total performance of medical care.
And the surveillance didn't stop with those big city cameras. No, this was personal. The narrator describes someone sitting right outside their door, just watching, and another person in a totally different room also watching from a distance. I mean, there was literally no escape from the feeling of being constantly observed.
Okay, so things are about to shift gears here. It's no longer just about passive observation. Now it becomes active. Our narrator is put through this series of really strange tests, and it seems like the whole point was just to see how obedient they would be.
The first test was pretty simple, almost too simple. There's a sign that says, press the button on the telephone. So they press 0. A man answers and asks what they want. And when they explain, he basically says, well, at least we know you're following instructions. So boom. It was just a test of compliance. And yeah, they passed that one.
But the next test? Oh, this one gets tricky. It's a classic conflict. On one hand, you have a staff member officially asking for a urine sample. But at the exact same time, that mysterious observer in the other room whispers a warning. Don't pee in that cup, you'll fail. So what do?
And this is the crucial moment, right? The narrator has to make a choice. They decide to follow the official instruction, thinking that ignoring the creepy whispered warning was the real test. And guess what? They were right. It was never about the urine sample. It was all about seeing who they would obey, authority or the mysterious voice.
All right, if you thought things were weird before, you might want to buckle up, because this is where the story takes a hard left turn straight into science fiction. We're talking advanced tech from the future, and it all leads up to one final, huge choice that's going to decide everything.
So a woman comes in with a computer, and on it is something she calls version 7 AI. And what is that, you ask? Well, it's described as a piece of tech from the near future, the year 2025 to be exact, that can apparently play out anyone's entire life scenario. Like, it can predict the future. Pretty wild stuff.
Next, a police officer is taking the narrator to another little room, and on the way, they catch a glimpse of something really unsettling. Down a hallway, they see a row of what look like padded cells or pods, each with its own observation room.
The officer immediately tries to block their view, which of course just makes it super clear that this was something they were absolutely not supposed to see. Once they're inside this subroom, the officer lays it all out. The final ultimatum. It's simple. Option 1, you pass our little test. Option 2, you fail and you get put on the 7th floor. And if you fail, they're just going to act like this didn't even happen. You're basically erased from their records.
I mean, after this whole psychological maze they've been dragged through, is it any surprise that the narrator fails the test? So now we're at the final stage of this whole experience, and let me tell you, the conclusion is absolutely chilling. It's going to reframe everything we've heard so far. So they're told, okay, you're going to the 7th floor. But wait, there's another layer of deception here. The narrator glances out the window and realizes they're on the 4th floor, not the 7th. So the 7th floor isn't a literal place. It's more like a code word, right? A concept for a secret, hidden part of the hospital.
So our narrator spends a full week in this secret area. They say it was all a bit hazy at first, but then they just spent days trying to figure out what was going to happen when they got out. And then finally, after a week, they're released. They go back to a friend's house, trying to process everything.
And this is the final, absolutely devastating twist. The narrator is talking to their friend, and the friend just casually mentions a super specific detail about the version 7 AI program, a detail the narrator had never shared with anyone. And in that one moment, it all clicks into place. The realization hits them. They were in on it. The conspiracy wasn't just the hospital staff. It was their friend, too.
So this whole story, I mean, wow. Whether it's a true account of some elaborate psychological operation or the perception of a truly terrified mind, it leaves us with a really tough question, doesn't it? When reality itself feels staged and you can't tell what's real and what's just a performance, who can you possibly trust? Thanks for joining me for this breakdown.